We are right around the corner from conference titles, which means we're here to tell you on FCS ALL-IN as to who's in the running to finish as some of the top programs in regular season play. Welcome to our Week 11 episode, everyone. I'm your host, Alex Eshelman. My co-host, Sam Herder, Craig Haley. They'll join me in a little bit to talk our game of the week. That is Southeast Missouri State versus UT Martin. And we also have a great feature on a father-son duo that you will not want to miss out on. So suit up. It's time to kick off the show. I'm your host, Alex Eshelman. Alongside me are my co-hosts, that's Senior FCS Analyst of Hero Sports, Sam Herder, and Senior FCS Editor of Stats Perform and TheAnalyst.com, Craig Haley. Guys, time for another game ball segment. Let's start with our player of the week. Craig, who would you give your game ball to from week 10?
Alex, I'm going to go Matthew Downing, the Elon quarterback. It was his second straight game with averaging over 20 yards a pass. Completion, that is, 3 touchdown passes, 2 straight games like that. And Elon did it at number 5. Delaware created a 5-way tie atop the CAA. Chaos, you got to love it. Elon, Delaware, Richmond, Albany, Villanova, all tied at 5-1. You love that kind of scenario going into the final 2 weeks of the regular season.
Holy Cross running back Jordan Fuller, he had against Lehigh 30 carries, 228 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. A key win for Holy Cross and a key performance too for Fuller. Holy Cross was without their star quarterback Matthew Sluka, so they went to the ground. Fuller 30 carries, that's a lot nowadays for a running back, and he went off for Holy Cross.
And speaking of Holy Cross, let's move on to our team, our storyline that you would give a game ball to. Sam, I'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, I'll give my game ball team-wise to Nichols. A huge win over top 10 UIW last week, now sitting atop the Southland standings, undefeated in Southland play, now in the driver's seat for the auto bid, the Southland Conference. So, Nichols, kind of, in a sense, came out of nowhere, and now they're in the driver's seat to make the playoffs.
Craig, how about you?
Well, talking about five-way ties for first, the Ivy League was that way 2 weeks ago when 5 teams were 2-1, but now it's Harvard sitting alone. They moved into sole possession of first place by beating Columbia, and they did it with their 900th all-time win. There's only 10 teams in college football Division I that have done it. Only Yale on the FCS level besides Harvard. Of course, they're arch rivals. So I'm going to go Harvard for that 900th all-time win.
900 wins. You can't complain about that. Last game ball question, guys. As you know, I like to throw in a little random one. We've been talking about the holiday season. We're moved on from Halloween. Now on to Thanksgiving. But surrounding this time of year, people have different opinions, of course, as to when they can start celebrating Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, you name it. If you could give your game ball to a time frame, whether it's right after Halloween, the day after Thanksgiving, or somewhere in the middle, where would you give your game ball to? Craig, I'll start with you.
Well, we have November 18th, that Saturday that all these teams are trying to get into the playoffs and conference titles. I think that morning's okay, because you want to be prepared for Thanksgiving Day when Santa shows up in the Macy's Day Parade on that last float. So you better be set by then, and you're thinking playoffs all week long. So you better just do it that Saturday morning. And this year it's November 18th.
Craig, I love it. I was not expecting that answer, but that's a fantastic answer. Sam, what about you?
Yeah, I think Thanksgiving gets slept on a little bit when people jump right from Halloween to putting their Christmas tree up, for example. For us, we usually wait until like mid-November to put up the Christmas tree. I still think that's a little too soon. I would rather wait until December, but I'm okay with middle of November. Right after Halloween is a little too quick for me, but the Christmas tree up in the middle of November, I can live with that.
Fair. I'm going to go, I've kind of transitioned. My family always went day after Thanksgiving. It's officially Christmas time, but I feel like I've started to inch towards starting the celebration after Halloween, just because why not? It just goes by so fast. Anyway, all right, guys, thank you for answering that question. We're going to stick on the holiday topics throughout the rest of the show here, throughout the next couple of weeks. But in the meantime, we've got our Game of the Week segment coming up. It is SEMO versus UT Martin. We're going to be talking about that here on FCS All-In. When SEMO and UT Martin meet this weekend, first place standings in the Big South OVC are on the line. These two teams, they have battled, winning 3 of the last 4 OVC championships, including last year. Both teams finished 5-0, except they weren't able to play due to a scheduling quirk. That led to a coin flip to determine the automatic bid to the playoffs, which SEMO won, ending UT Martin's season.
Knew that only being 7-4 last year, that needed to win the coin flip, and it was very, very disappointing. Fired up, we won the game, beat East Illinois, go share the championship undefeated, and then 30 minutes later lose the coin flip, and we're out. So a lot of our players remember that. I don't think it has any bearing on the game.
Yeah, disappointed. Even before the season, I texted him and wish we would have been able to play. It is a game that I always circled. When I got here and I was looking at the conference and teams and everything, I was shocked. I think he was 7-1 against SEMO before I got here, and I didn't understand how that could be. And so this is a game that I always look forward to. I judge how we are doing as a program based on the outcome of that game, and I can't wait to get down there and play.
Can't say enough about Coach Took and what he's done with that program. It may be 19-19, but it feels like I'm about 1-18 against Took since he's been there. The defense is hard. You can't hardly run the ball against it. Against that scheme. They've got the best wide receiver in the league and the most established running back in the league.
Yeah, totally. It's always been a great game. They pin their ears back and get after you, and we probably too. And so love how they coach them, how their players play, and so there's a lot of respect from my standpoint, though this is not a rivalry that is bitter or you don't like those guys. I like all of them. I'm pulling for Coach Simpson. I'm pulling for him that this is the year that Southern Miss wakes up and goes hires him, so my job gets easier.
Well, guys, time for our Game of the Week segment. A Big South OVC Football Association top-ranked matchup between SEMO and UT Martin. Guys, we were talking about this before we started the show. The storylines surrounding this matchup is very important when you look at our Game of the Week. They shared the OVC title last year. The tiebreaker for the automatic playoff bid came down to a coin flip. They're tied at 19-19 when you look at the overall series. I'm going to start with you, Craig, because you really did kind of kick us off onto talking about the storylines. But what intrigues you most when looking at this matchup?
Well, it really is a kind of couple years in the making. And if you go back to 2021, with the COVID year and playing in the spring, they actually played 3 times that year within an 8-month span. And then they don't play last year. They only play a 5-game conference schedule, and they wind up going 5-0 each. They go through several tiebreakers as a league, the OVC, and it came down to a coin flip. SEMO, Southeast Missouri, goes in on the automatic bid to the playoffs. UT Martin was 7-4, did not get an at-large bid. So that's been hanging over this for a while now. Now they merge with the Big South, the OVC, into this new 10 school football association. So these two teams really have a lot of history here going into this matchup.
Sam, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, it's huge not only for these two teams, but the other teams in the Big South OVC, other teams across the FCS when it comes to playoff positioning, because UT Martin, Gardner-Webb, and SEMO all have one loss, in the conference standings right now. So the loser here is probably out of the playoff picture. Gardner-Webb has a head-to-head win over UT Martin, but they don't play SEMO, and so there's potentially some tiebreaker scenarios at the end of the year. I think if a team like Gardner-Webb ends up getting the auto bid out of this conference, UT Martin has a really good argument for an at-large bid. But if you flip it around, if UT Martin gets the auto bid, Gardner-Webb might not have as strong as an at-large bid. And so, the fourth place team in the CAA, the fourth place team in the Big Sky, the Valley, the SoCon, they're also intrigued with how things kind of shake out in this conference, if it's a one-bid league or possibly a two-bid league.
Craig, when you look at SEMO, they've won 4 out of the last 5. They've won the last 2 straight. What makes you think that the Red Hawks can get it done this time around, once again?
Yeah, well, they obviously have a ton of talent in this program. They've been one of the more underachieving teams of the year. I mean, they've lost 4 times to FCS opponents by a combined 10 points. So they've been there the whole time, just losing in the end. So I think they have the talent. They have, they were the team to beat going into the Big South OVC, season. I just think they're a very talented team. Obviously, they've had an injury at quarterback. I just think they have enough talent to get it done on the road. UT Martin's tough at home, but SEMO having all this talent, they expected to be in this game. Just a matter of whether they can get it done with things not going the way they expected.
And on that note, Sam, on the other hand, UT Martin kind of sits as the top dog when you look at these two teams. They're ranked 16th in the country right now. They lead the conference in the standings 4-1. What makes you think that they can pull off the win here?
Yeah, UT Martin was undefeated versus the FCS for quite some time, and they were rising up the rankings until suffering a loss pretty recently. But, they just look like a well-built football team. They like to run the ball, led by Sam Franklin. And so I think, week after week, they're showing off their talent as well. And I think this one, being at home as well helps. Plus, like Craig mentioned, SEMO is battling some injuries. Paxton DeLaurent for SEMO, starting quarterback. He's been out for the last couple of games. Sounds like he's probably going to be done for the season. And so all that kind of, possibly gives the upper hand to UT Martin.
I ask you guys every week, keys to the game, keys to each team getting the victory here. Sam, I'll start with you and then we'll go to you, Craig.
Yeah, I think this one, it could be pretty basic. I think whichever offensive line plays better, because I think both teams are going to try to run the ball. I already mentioned Sam Franklin for UT Martin. Gino Hess for SEMO is a record-breaking quarterback, a 6-year senior. He's been around for quite some time. So these are our 2 running backs who are probably going to be over 1,000 yards by the time the season is over. But, the running backs, a good running back will always credit his offensive line. And so whichever offensive line can get that push, create some blocks, some seams to run through, I think that's going to be the upper hand here.
Whoever wins the battle in the trenches. All right, Craig, what are your thoughts on this one?
Sam mentions Gino Hess. He's maybe about 40 yards away from 5,000 in his career rushing wise, but he really hasn't had the season he expected. He did have a big game last week against Robert Morris, 150 yards. He's got to get it done. You don't want a young quarterback like a Patrick Hyder, having to win the game. I just think that's the key is the Gino Hess we're so used to through the years, going to be there. And UT Martin's defense, they don't even give up 100 rushing yards a game. So I just think that's the matchup overall, UT Martin's defense against Gino Hess of SEMO.
A matchup you won't want to miss. We'll also talk about a handful of FCS matchups across the nation that you will not want to miss and have marked on your calendars this weekend for week 11 coming up. It's our Pick'em segment. Don't go away.
What is Southeast Missouri? Let's try this again. You are Southeast Missouri. You make Southeast Missouri what it is. And Southeast Missouri is who we are. It's in our name. It's in our past. And with you, it's our future. Welcome home.
Thanks so much for tuning in to another edition of FCS All-In. We've got our Pick'em segment right now. We've got Alex Eshelman, Sam Herder, Craig Haley. All right. First and foremost, South Dakota State versus Youngstown State. Craig, I'll start with you.
23 in a row for the Jackrabbits. I mean, I just think in this one, Mark Gronowski is going to attack with the pass. I mean, Youngstown State, they've given up almost twice as many yards passing in their losses than in their win. Conversely, I think Youngstown State has to control the clock, which they're very good at doing. I think that's how they can get the upset. But I'm just going to say, the Jackrabbit machine rolls on.
It's hard to pick against them, except I love the Penguins. You can't root against that mascot. Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, it'll be hard to pick against South Dakota State again here, but I do think it'll be closer than expected. South Dakota State could probably afford a loss here and still end up getting the number 1 playoff seed. They're coming off back-to-back rivalry games, and so maybe the Jacks are a little sluggish. And on the flip side, I think Youngstown State is going to throw the kitchen sink at South Dakota State, because YSU, if they lose this game, they might go 7-4. They might end up getting left out of the playoffs. If they win, they're probably for sure in at 8-3. And so I think it'll be a little bit closer, but at the end of the day, South Dakota State has too much talent, and they'll pull away for a win.
Next up, UND versus South Dakota, the Coyotes. Who gets it done? Sam, I'll start with you.
I'll go with South Dakota at home. UND, since beating NDSU, has kind of slumped back a little bit, and UND doesn't play as well on the road. And USD is just, I think a really well-built football team. They play really good defense. They play well at home, and they're balanced offensively. So USD looks like they're on their way to a playoff seed, but they first need to get a win at home, and I think they do.
Craig, your thoughts?
I'm going to go with the Coyotes as well. I mean, their defense is so talented, and they just keep shutting down teams more or less. But I'll give you something on North Dakota. Tommy Schuster, he's been around so long getting it done. He's now the new North Dakota all-time leader in touchdown passes, 61. He's been around so long. 2 weeks ago, he threw his career high with 4 touchdown passes. Last week, he throws 5 and betters that record in back-to-back weeks. That just shows you Tommy Schuster's probably getting better.
We love the Fighting Hawks. All right, next up, Southern Illinois versus North Dakota State. Do the Salukis get it done, or do the Bison have a chip on their shoulder after that loss to SDSU? Craig, I'll start with you.
Ooh, the losing team falls to 3-4 in the Missouri Valley. That is remarkable with these two talented teams. I'm going to go with the Bison at home getting it done. They've seen Nick Baker so much through the years. Nick Baker gets it done. I mean, he did end the Bison's 39-game winning streak, a record in 2021, the spring season. He actually played in this game in 2018. Nick Baker in the Fargo Dome, 2018, he played against the Bison. That's how long he's been around and getting it done for the Salukis.
Amazing. Sam, what do you think?
I think the Fargo Dome will be the difference here. The Bison win, a close one, but it should be a really tough battle. Southern Illinois is playing really well defensively, so that's an interesting battle right there. But I think, whoever wins this probably has a leg up to make the playoffs. The loser, probably needs to win their last game to get into the field. So a big one here, but NDSU at home.
Fargo Dome, a marquee place to play in the FCS. All right, an Ivy League matchup up next between Penn and Harvard. Sam, who gets the dub here?
Yeah, I think I'll go with Harvard here. They've been in and out of the top 25 a little bit recently, but they really came on the radar a handful of weeks ago, beating Holy Cross. They've suffered a loss, since then, but I still think Harvard is the best team in the Ivy League. I really like the defensive line for Harvard, and if you can stop the run, disrupt the quarterback, you have a great chance to win. So I'll take Harvard.
Craig, Harvard, yes, no?
I'm going to go Crimson. I joked in the preseason on a podcast. I said, nobody tell Tim Murphy, the Crimson coach, that his team was only 4th in the preseason poll in the Ivy League. Because they know how to get it done. If they win this game, they earn at least a share of the Ivy League title. He would tie Carm Koza, the one-time Yale coach, for his 10th all-time Ivy League title. He gets it done. I'll go with Harvard as well.
All right, the Crimson, take it. Next up, Fordham versus the Lafayette Leopards. Craig, who ends this one victorious?
I'll go Lafayette home. I think it's a great matchup. Fordham's so explosive. Lafayette still controls its destiny in the Patriot League if they win their final 2 games here against Fordham and against their rival Lehigh. But I tell you, you look at Lafayette, the last 3 games, they're giving up many more points than they had early in the year. Maybe the schedule's getting tougher, but their defense is wearing down a little bit. I'm going to give them the advantage at home, despite all the Fordham firepower.
Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, the Patriot League race for the auto bid could get really interesting here. Like Craig said, Lafayette is in the driver's seat if they do win out to get that auto bid. I do think they get a win here. A little bit concerned, Craig did mention it, but a little bit concerned about the defense for Lafayette. I mean, Fordham has, they're just lighting up the scoreboard, especially passing the ball. But Lafayette at home, I think they can establish the run, kind of milk the clock a little bit, control the tempo of the game. So I'll take Lafayette here.
Elon taking on the Richmond Spiders. Sam, who gets the victory?
I think, I'll go with Elon, even though I think the, home crowd could be the difference for Richmond, but I'll still go with Elon. They're playing really well, kind of a sneaky team because, they haven't been on a whole lot of top 25 radars, but Elon has 2 top 5 wins on their resume, including last week beating Delaware. So I just think they have things rolling right now and they keep it up with the road win.
Craig, what do you think?
I've thought about this game in the last hour. I've flip-flopped. I've gone from Richmond to Elon, back to Richmond. I think Richmond might be able to run the ball on Elon. I think that's the difference if that happens because, Richmond has had a week off, extra week to prepare. Elon is coming off that emotional win at Delaware and going right back on the road. Again, I'm flipping all over the place on this one, but I'll go Richmond at home.
How about a SoCon matchup between Samford and Mercer? Craig, who gets the dub here?
I'm just rooting for a game like last year. Samford won 50-44 in double overtime. Ty James had 351 receiving yards for Mercer in that game. I'm hoping for that kind of game. I'm going to go Mercer because this could put them maybe over the top for an at-large playoff bid. Samford hasn't beaten anybody above them in the standings in the SoCon. They've beaten everybody below them. I just think Mercer being above them and really playing for a playoff bid gets it done.
Those overtime matchups are why we love football, man. All right, Sam, who wins it?
I'll go with Mercer as well. They've really gotten things rolling down the stretch here. Being at home, that also helps. And, I think Mercer probably punches their ticket to the playoffs with a win. So I will take Mercer, but, keep an eye on Samford. They are 5-4. They play ranked Mercer. They play ranked UT Martin. If Samford wins these next 2, all of a sudden they're 7-4 with 2 ranked wins, and Samford goes for unranked to possibly in the playoffs. And so the Bulldogs have a lot to play for. Their offense can really get rolling, but I think Mercer just has got things rolling a little bit better right now.
All right, I like it. Don't count the Bulldogs out. All right, Idaho versus Weber. Sam, do the Wildcats have it or do the Vandals have it?
I'll go with Idaho here. The Vandals probably got a wake-up call this last week on the road, struggling at Northern Colorado, a week after, getting some huge ranked wins. So I think Idaho, that was a good wake-up call for them. Weber State has dropped off and, just matchup-wise, it's going to be hard for Weber State's offense that's struggling pretty much this year. For them to outscore Idaho, I think it's going to be a tall order. So got to go with the Vandals on the road.
Craig, who wins it?
Got to go with the Vandals. I mean, Kochek zeroes in on the playoffs here. They could possibly, win the Big Sky title, the auto bid. I would just keep giving the ball to Anthony Woods and use him to set up the pass. Obviously, Weber has a great defense at times with when they're healthy. I'm just going to go with the Vandals on this one, though.
Time now for our game of the week. SEMO at UT Martin. Craig, who gets it done?
Well, I did mention that SEMO is one of the more disappointing teams of the year, just because they were 12th in the preseason. I think I had them top 10 on my ballot. UT Martin, Jason Simpson's a terrific coach. He's been doing it forever here in the OVC. Gardner Webb has control of its destiny in the Big South OVC race, but this is a big one. UT Martin, obviously would put a lot of pressure on on Gardner-Webb by getting it done at home. Gardner would have to win both times because UT Martin does finish at Sanford. I just think you have to go with UT Martin at home, and maybe a little edge of experience at quarterback factors in as well.
Sam, your thoughts?
I'll go with UT Martin as well. I think it's been a difficult year for SEMO. They've had like 3 heartbreaking losses in a row earlier on in the season. They've dealt with some injuries. The big one being Paxton DeLaurent, who's a really talented quarterback for them. And so him being out, that hurts. And I think UT Martin has the ability to stop the run. They can get the ground game going as well, like with Sam Franklin. So UT Martin keeps it rolling and gets a win.
We'll see what happens. Just soaking every last week of the regular season in before it's time for playoffs. Thank you both as always for your time, and we'll be right back with FCS All-In.
In the heart of this close-knit community lies a place where the sky is the limit. It's a place that believes in the power of a personalized education, where passionate and dedicated faculty are more than just teachers, they're mentors. It's a place where you'll have access to cutting-edge facilities and resources, empowering you to explore your interests and turn your ideas into reality. This is the University of Tennessee at Martin.
UC Davis head football coach Dan Hawkins and his son, current Idaho State head football coach Cody Hawkins, are one of the only father-son coaching duos in all of Division I college football right now. Dan says when you're in this business long enough, you end up coaching against friends and now apparently relatives, but he also knows that his bond with Cody is one that goes far beyond the football field.
We're not defined by coaching football. Obviously, it's a great opportunity for him, but yeah, people said, well, you must be very proud of him. I said, well, I've been proud of him before he was the head football coach.
A pride that spans over years of being together on the sidelines. Cody played for his dad at the University of Colorado, and from there, they've worked together overseas in Sweden for the U.S. national team, and most recently with the Aggies for 6 seasons.
He's just done a really good job cultivating an environment that I would want to work in. And so hopefully I can take everything that he's taught me and that he's displayed throughout his career and try and do the same thing for the staff at Idaho State.
Though they'll lead 2 different Big Sky programs this year, their battle will be fought with the same philosophy.
It's never about the other team for us. It really isn't. It's about being the best version of ourselves. He'll tell you the same thing. So whoever can play the best that day and be the best version of themselves is going to win a game.
As the two work to not only win on the field, but also succeed in life, the Hawkins say it's all about putting family first.
He was supporting our interests. He spent a lot of time with us one-on-one and away from football, but he also made sure we were really involved in his football activities. That's on the sidelines, signaling plays, having dinner in the office, having guys over to the house for Thanksgiving and Christmas. We were so integrated that it never felt like football was this mistress. It was a multiplier for our family. It gave us all these experiences that made our family time better.
Family time is taking on a whole new form in the Hawkins household this season, especially on Saturday, November 11th, as UC Davis takes on Idaho State. They're calling it a party in Pocatello. Dan's birthday is on November 10th. Cody's daughter Finley's birthday is on the 11th. We might see the 2 head coaches share a hug in the center of the football field rather than the classic handshake prior to kickoff, and you can catch the entire celebration on ESPN+. One of my absolute favorite stories from this football season. Be sure to tune in to the Hawkins matchup this Saturday on ESPN+, as well as the rest of our FCS matchups across the nation. Thanks so much for tuning in every week, and I can't believe I'm saying this, our last episode of the regular season airs next Friday, so be sure to join us.